Greetings, brothers. Today we're talking about Angel of Death, Episode 2, The Silent City, the new Blood Angels themed animation that's available on Warhammer Plus. There will be some spoilers, but if you want to discuss this episode with me, then stick around, as this will be a very raw first reaction to it. So this episode picks off very much where we left, looking at the drop pod assault from the Sword of Baal heading down to the planet to rescue the captain. Now, the drop pods looked very cool, and also in the little intro at the beginning of the episode there was a very cool little animation of the drop pod. But the more I watch the show, the more I wish there was more colour, and we're going to get a little bit to that further on in this discussion. But some of the times in this episode we're switching between what's happening on the ground and what's happening on the planet, and because it's so dark, it's actually taking me a few seconds to realise what the scene even is, because it's just a lot of black, and that kind of spoiled this week's episode a little bit for me. So as we're going down in the drop pod, we start again with Chaplain Raphael, and he had some more great quotes by the Blood Angels. If you guys want quotes to say during your games, for your lore, for your crusade, then this guy is a wealth of quotes. Just watch the drop assault. I kind of liked it, and there was a little bit of a mishmash or problem here in it. One drop pod hit into some sort of terrain. It is a very sort of stereotypical Warhammer world, big gothic architecture, huge structures, and as such one drop pod was slightly off course. So when we arrive, or while the drop pods are going down, we see that we cut to our tech marine Hadriel, and he is in the midst of repairing the Thunderhawk. I did actually say, when you see the drop pods assault, how are they getting back to the ship? So this is why Hadriel stayed on board. I think he is the only space marine that stayed on board the Sword of Baal, because last week we discussed that a Seraph shipmaster was actually the captain of the ship. So Hadriel is on the ship by himself, repairing the Thunderhawk so that they can get an extraction if this mission goes successfully. When the Marines of one drop pod does land and it does open, they all step out, they all have their bolters. I think one of them was armed with a heavy bolter. I didn't see any close combat weapons at this point, so I was a little bit disappointed about that. I did see a knife on one of the guy's shoulders, but for the most part it just looked like they had their bolt guns. And because they had kind of separated, I wasn't actually sure what the mission was. They were trying to get the beacon for their captain and go find him, but the city was silent, that's the name of the episode, and it was completely dead. So both sets of Marines disembarked. However, meanwhile we cut back to the Sword of Baal, which is finally going to leave the docking platform. They were refueling at the beginning of the last episode. However, there's an armada of ships passing the space station. Now, maybe I missed it and maybe someone can explain to me in the comments, but the ships that we see, a lot of them have Blood Angels heraldry on them, or they had Aquillas on them. Maybe I need to check that. However, at some point it seems like there's a distress call from one of these ships saying that they're being overrun by mutants, and it very much looks like they're actually heading for a collision course with the Sword of Baal. The Sword of Baal is obviously still tethered, and they're trying to get free from the tether. I don't know if they have no cannons or anything that could shoot out that tether, but regardless, this is what's happening. But it didn't feel like anyone was in a huge rush to disembark, which is the bit that kind of confused me. The captain on the bridge was screaming for everybody to get the Sword of Baal free so they could get disembarked, but down on the docking bay it was like one guy was going like, hey, we're gonna be pumping this airlock in 1 minute. It didn't feel like there was any impotence or rush to get free. And meanwhile, more ships started breaking off this armada, I believe, to come and attack the Sword of Baal. So the Sword of Baal is obviously important because we saw all the gene seeds last time, and I guess there's a bit of excitement here, or a bit of tension, because there aren't any Space Marines, or there's just one Space Marine, the Tech Marine, left on the Sword of Baal, and they are going to get boarded and or engaged in close combat in space, or engaged in space combat. And there's a lot of tension building in this episode, as you kind of feel like this is what's going to happen, or to me maybe it was a little bit obvious that this was going to happen. There's a couple of cultists that kind of maybe make it a little bit obvious, And then meanwhile on the planet, right after they get out of the drop pod, one of the Marines, and it's really hard to distinguish the Marines once they've got their helmets on. I don't know if that's just that we didn't get enough time with them without their helmets on, or if too many of them have just, you know, they do have different helmets, but like, I couldn't remember, you know, which Marine donned which helmet. So it was quite difficult to know who was actually speaking at that point. But one of them says like the radiation on the planet is like not safe for humans, and then like a bunch of humans which could be Imperial Guard, or could be, I mean in some ways they actually look a bit like Death Corps of Krieg, roll up, and like straight away I was thinking like this is Genestealer cultists, and one of the Marines detects something fishy with these guys. And then we open fire and we have a brief firefight. They do have a tank with a las cannon, I think, and a heavy bolter. And one of our Marines takes the las cannon shot center chest. But he's all good because I guess he rolled a 6 and las cannons are only -3. Meanwhile, their bolt guns are so much better than they are on the tabletop. Every bolt gun shot is a dead enemy, and yeah, the Marines just, as Marines do, they make fairly quick work of regular infantry. There's definitely some cool shots here, and what happens is, although they were all wielding bolt guns, and I couldn't see it, I didn't see any chainswords in the last episode. One of our Marines, the one that was in the Death Watch, has a chainsword. I don't know where he stashed that during the drop pod assault, but he has one, and he is one, or the only Marine, I believe, that runs into basically what is a Genestealer. So it's kind of, I guess it's maybe not a fully grown Genestealer, it's maybe a mutant cultist that has the 4 telltale arms of the Genestealer. Unfortunately, he makes quick work of it with the chainsword. But I guess the planet, the reason that, I mean, if we flip back to the previous episode, the reason that they haven't been able to make contact with their captain is because there are a lot of Genestealers on the planet. Just, the city was eerily silent when they landed, which I guess makes sense, but yeah, I mean, it didn't feel like all that much happened in this episode, and I think that's going to be a problem going forward with like these episodes being super short. You know, they're, in my opinion, they're just not long enough, right? You're not, you sit down to watch it and it's kind of over before you know it, because I guess by the time you cut off the credits and cut off the intro, you're probably only looking at like 12 or 13 minutes, and I think together it would flow as a better story, because, I mean, it's personal preference. Some people like to watch one episode a week. I'm much more of a person that would rather sit down and watch a decent amount at a single time. And I don't think there's any danger for the Marines. Like, it doesn't feel like they're in any danger. They're just mopping up the cultists on the planet. Once the las cannon shot hits him and he survives, I think, yeah, I don't feel like I didn't feel like the Marines were in any danger, especially if the guy can survive against like a center chest plate las cannon. And then our chaplain shows up, and our chaplain brutalizes one of the guys with his Crodius. It's one of the best moments in the episode, and especially when this guy was trying to leave the fight, he was falling back, and our chaplain just absolutely brutalized him. So there was some very cool moments, and again, overall, I like the direction. I felt that the episode was quite... It felt like maybe... like it's just too short. It's too dark. The comments that we got last week were that people said that the voice acting and some of the animation felt a bit amateur, maybe. I can't remember all the comments, but there was a lot of comments about the voice acting and a lot of comments about, like, some people loved it, and I think last week I really enjoyed the first episode. I enjoyed this episode too, but the fact that I was struggling at times to follow what was going on just because it was so dark, I don't like that in movies in general, and it's also one of the reasons that I very rarely go to see 3D movies, like you know, if they were doing like a movie with a lot of special effects and it's very quick, I would probably just avoid the 3D version, because, you know, sometimes when you've got that 3D on, it can be hard to follow exactly what's going on. And this, I guess because it's so dark, it felt similar. Like, you know, like I think I complained out loud in my living room at one point, was just like, it's just too dark. So that's my opinion going forward. And then meanwhile, back on the ship, we have the Gene Stealer cultists physically disabling the control console with a machine gun, or maybe it's like an auto gun or something, to prevent the Sword of Baal leaving orbit. And the Sword of Baal tries to leave orbit, but they say that if they try to fire up the engines again, they'll rip the ship apart. Meanwhile, I guess they're getting boarded, and they are under threat of being attacked in space combat. So it felt like there was very little tension on the ground. The Space Marines were just mopping everything up. And then there was a bit of tension, or a bit of excitement in the space part of this episode. So my thoughts, the two episodes together are fine. I think the story is going to be pretty good, but I don't like the format. I think it's too short, and yeah, I mean, because it's so short, I felt like there wasn't much substance to this episode. You know, like they drop podded, they fought off some cultists. Meanwhile, some cultists tried to take the ship. That was it. And if I missed anything, then please let me know in the comments. I think, you know, a lot of people, I put a poll up this week about Warhammer Plus, and a lot of people haven't subscribed to it. And I think that probably the right thing to do is to support this service, because the more support it gets, the better it will be. And I mean, a lot of people have probably waited and wanted a Blood Angels animation or series for a long, long time. I know ever since we got that Ultramarines movie, probably over a decade ago now, I have wanted a Blood Angels movie or a Blood Angels series. So here it is, and it's not bad. And it's not bad for the first thing they put up. I'm sure if we go back and look at the first stuff Netflix did, I bet it was trash. In some ways it's like YouTube, right? If you go back and watch my very first videos, and you know what, I will link my first video up here. It is absolutely trash. I got one subscriber from my very first video, and whoever he is, I don't know who he is, or she, sorry. Let's not be let's be politically correct on this channel. We always try to be. On my one subscriber, whoever he or she was, thank you so much for subscribing on this terrible, terrible video that I made, because you are the person that gave me the hope that maybe I could get, you know, 100 subscribers. So if this is their first thing that they're producing, then I think we need to be positive. I think we want to support the service. I am very surprised that it's almost only 1 in 4 people that are supporting this. Maybe some people want to pick it up when there's more episodes. I totally understand that. You know, like if you just want to subscribe for a month or two throughout the year, watch a bunch of content and unsubscribe, then that's how I use some of my other streaming services. But don't write this off, guys. Think about it, give it a chance, and maybe in the future we'll get more shows like this, and maybe longer, because I mean that's what we need them to get. I'm sure, you know, I'm sure that's something that they probably want to do, and it's just hopefully a matter of time. Thank you so much for watching and hearing me ramble. Leave a comment below if I missed anything or you want to correct me or anything, and I will see you guys later this week for another video. And this week I didn't put this red light. I put this red light on the wall. Last week it was on my face. It looked cool on my face, but for the rest of the day I swear I was seeing red out this eye. So I'm trying not to blind myself tonight. I hope you guys have a good one. Thank you ever so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. By the blood are we made strong, brothers. Peace.